Of the two candidates, only one is with us tonight, and that is Senator Chris Nybo. His opponent, Susie Glowiak, apologizes. She had a last-minute conflict that prevented her from being here, but she did want to tell you that she appreciates the hard work of the League of Women Voters and what they do to further civic engagement. So now we'll begin with Senator Nybo, and you have 2 minutes to make an opening statement.
Well, I appreciate that, Barb. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being out here. It's too bad. I'm really sad that my opponent was not able to make it here because of a last-minute conflict. Coincidentally, she had another last-minute conflict last night when we were supposed to be at an event. So I'm hopeful that one of these days, before November 6th comes along, that we are going to have the opportunity to actually meet in person, because this is sad. For as long as our campaign's been going on for almost a whole year, we haven't seen each other once, and that's not the way it should be. This is how it should be. I appreciate you being here, and let me start off by saying, I'm your current state senator, and it's such a privilege to be able to represent you down in Springfield. I've heard from so many of you in emails and phone calls and meetings and campaigning, but there's not a day that doesn't go by when I don't have such appreciation and humility for the opportunity to work on your behalf. And whether you agree with what I've done down there or disagree, I want you to know that I've done the best that I absolutely can. I'm more of a middle-of-the-road Republican than some of the other Republicans that you might see. Some people, I get a lot of criticism from people within my own party because they think I sometimes side with Democrats too frequently. What I know is that the votes that I take and the issues that I stand up for down in Springfield, I'm absolutely certain are the issues that the people in the 24th District care about. Whether they're people like you who live in Glen Ellyn or Wheaton, people like me who live in Elmhurst, that's my hometown, people who live in Hinsdale or Westmont or Lombard. The issues that we're going to talk about tonight, the issues that I've been active upon, are the issues that they care about. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some minutes kind of talking about what I've been doing down there and my positions on some of the important issues facing our state.
Okay, thank you. So, as the incumbent, this is an appropriate question for you. Do you support term limits for Illinois House and Senate seats?
Absolutely, and I know I'm a single candidate, so I'll try to make my comments a little more brief than what might usually take place when there's another candidate up here. A term limits bill was one of the first bills that I filed when I became a state representative. I think about 10 to 12 years is the maximum amount of time that anybody should serve in any chamber. And I think Exhibit A for why we need term limits in this state is Speaker Madison, as Dr. Kinsler talked about. Speaker Madigan's grasp on this state is unimaginable unless you're absolutely down there watching him have such control over things. I'd be certainly in favor of term limits, and I hope that the first person that it applies to is Speaker Madigan.
How should we balance the state budget?
In the same way that we just did. We have not had a lot to pat ourselves on the back about for the last 4 years in Illinois, and I know a lot of people are really disappointed with the budget impasse that we went through. I'm disappointed with the budget impasse. That neither ended the way that I wanted it to end, nor did it accomplish what I think we were all hoping to accomplish, which was property tax relief in a more competitive business atmosphere and pension reform. But this year, one good silver lining is that legislators rolled up the sleeves and we actually balanced the budget this year. And not only did we balance the budget, but we actually devoted $300 million more to our local public schools across the state, whether it's Glenbard South here, which is a wonderful school, or York, which is the high school in my neighborhood, or Hinsdale Central or Westmont. We gave more money to our local schools while at the same time balancing our budget.
How would you encourage job growth in Illinois?
This again has been an issue that I've been working on since I first joined the legislature. I first joined as a House member in 2011. Many of you may remember it was the depths of the recession, and there were so many unemployed people looking for work in our state. And I met them personally as I went door to door to door to door. It was sad how many people were home during hours when they would normally be working if our economy was where it should be. Workers' compensation was the big issue that I worked upon then. It's the big issue that we need to work upon now. I've taken tough votes, lining up with mostly Democrats to support workers' comp reforms that have improved our business atmosphere here. but there's more that can be done. I was at the table, we were about to get some significant reforms when all of our negotiations on the budget collapsed last year, and the income tax increase was passed without any reforms, and that was tragic.
Have you ever voted on an increase or decrease to property taxes?
Absolutely not. Like Senator Cullerton and Dr. Kinsler and Seth Lewis, property taxes is the single biggest issue that we hear about from people in our communities. You know, I don't need to explain to you how onerous and how difficult it can be to pay our property tax bills. I am a strong proponent of property tax relief. I've been pushing hard for property tax relief. I've never voted for a property tax increase, and I think our state would be a lot better in a lot of different ways if we weren't so reliant on property taxes compared to other states across the country.
Okay. There's been a request logistically, if you could move either to the side or behind the table, that would be great. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure you're in the video.
Absolutely.
Are you in favor of progressive income tax?
I am not. I think our state is overtaxed. We just talked about property taxes and how property taxes are crushing families all across our state and driving businesses out. I think the same can be said about income taxes. We just reenacted the 32% income tax increase that went into effect shortly before I joined the House. I think raising taxes is not the answer to Illinois' problems. The answer is reforming government, reducing our reliance on property taxes, and creating a business atmosphere where people actually can get jobs here, where businesses want to locate here, and where we can all take advantage of the benefits of more economic activity. More economic activity means more taxable income and revenue.
What would you do to protect women from workplace harassment?
Great question in light of everything that's been happening in our country, not only today, but over the last year. So by my profession is I'm an employment attorney. And what I do is I work with businesses all across the state on how to make sure that they have the right policies and culture in place to prevent and detect sexual harassment. I have counseled clients. I've led them through investigations. I've helped them make the decision that certain people should be fired for engaging in inappropriate behavior. It should never be tolerated, and certainly not within the state of Illinois. I was a leading member pushing for ethics reform this year. We accomplished ethics reform. We are working towards a culture where harassment will not occur. It's unacceptable, and it's one of the hardest things that I have fought for, and that I will continue to fight for if I'm able to continue to be your senator down there.
What, if any, steps should Illinois take to reform immigration?
This is an issue where I probably have distinguished myself or drawn some distinction between some of my colleagues. I think that no matter what your immigration status, you should still have opportunity. If you're a child, you should be able to get a top-notch education. If you're looking for work within reasonable boundaries, we should help provide opportunities for you to be able to work. I think that Illinois is at its best when it's a welcoming state with a welcoming culture that creates opportunity and not creating artificial barriers to opportunity. So I have been supportive of some of the immigration reform measures down in Springfield, and I will continue to do so.
What's your proposal on pension reform?
My proposal for pension reform is actually sitting on the shelf right now. It's Senate Bill 16. It was a bill that we were very close to passing last year. Dr. Kinsler talked about it a little bit. It's a bill that, and Seth Lewis talked about it a little bit too. It's essentially taking the Tier 1 employees and moving all of the Tier 1 employees into a Tier 2 structure, which is much less generous. It's offering them the opportunity to make a choice, whether they want to continue to have salary increases count towards pensions, or whether they agree to accept a more reasonable cost of living adjustment annually. It's Senate Bill 16. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that we haven't passed that bill. Not only has it been an active piece of legislation for 2 years, but it's been a concept that's been around now for 4 years.
What do you feel is the solution to adequately fund education in Illinois?
Well, I think we took a really strong step forward this year with the revision of the funding formula. And we did so in a way that did not penalize any schools. So this was something that was really important to our district. Initially, there were proposals to restructure the funding formula in a way that would have been devastating to our local schools, such as Glenbard South here. What we did is we worked on a way to revamp the funding formula, to have the allocation of state dollars based on real facts about districts and demographics, but at the same time making sure that no schools would lose money. So I think what we need to do is to continue to put money through the formula, like we did with this year's budget. We put an extra $300 million there. And I think the way that we identify new revenue is we need to continue to prioritize our spending and make cuts where we can, as we did this year.
I feel like we're doing quick fire.
I think the audience appreciates that. I hope they do. Yeah, they've got a long panel tonight.
Covering a lot of ground. What laws would you propose to curb gun violence in Illinois?
Well, I'm going to one-up the question, and I'm going to say, what laws have you proposed? Because this is not just wishful thinking on my part. Gun control, from my perspective in gun safety, I think is an issue that resonates certainly with people within the 24th District, but people all across the state of Illinois and across our country. Like many of you, I was significantly impacted by the events in Las Vegas and in Parkland. And since then, I've worked very hard. I've supported a lot of the good measures that have come out, the 72-hour waiting period, the bump stock ban, lethal violence order of protection. But the big issue that I've worked on is I had some concerns initially with it, but then I rolled up my sleeve and I worked real hard with lead sponsor Don Harmon to revise gun dealer licensing, to get it to a point where it could get more Republican support and become a better bill. We passed that. It's Senate Bill 337, and if you haven't done so already, I'd encourage you to contact Governor Brunner and ask him to sign the bill.
Okay. What's your position on fair mapping?
Oh, it absolutely should be taken out of the hands of the politicians. I mean, one of the reasons why we've got so many goofy districts just here in DuPage County is because of the way that they manipulate district boundaries. You know, Tom Cullerton just doesn't represent the Senate District 23. He represents the Tom Cullerton district that was drawn so that he could get elected to the Senate. That's a tragedy the way that they do it. When I was a state rep, I had my district divided up in 6 different ways during redistricting. It should be computerized, it should be nonpartisan. We can do it much better here in Illinois, and we should.
Have you done anything on the opioid crisis?
Absolutely. Actually, this was another issue, along with gun dealer licensing and making sure that we could prevent gun trafficking and make sure that gun shops adopt more reasonable retail practices that protect people. I spent a lot of time on looking at our medical marijuana program and seeing if we could explore a way and find a way to have medical marijuana be used as an alternative to opioid prescriptions. Unlike opioids, the addiction factor for opioids is so much more significant than the addiction factor for medical marijuana. It's devastating what has happened to families, individuals, communities with opioids. So we were able to negotiate again. I worked with Senator Harmon, the Department of Public Health, and Governor Ron was a big ally of ours on this bill. We got that bill passed, and now we got one further step towards reducing unnecessary opioid addiction.
Okay, and last question before your final statement. What is your plan for criminal justice reform?
Great question. I feel like I've heard that before. So I've got a good answer on this. First of all, I'm an employment lawyer, and I think that having a criminal background should not be an unnecessary barrier to employment. So what we spend a lot of time is working on making it easier for people that have a criminal record to get back into the workplace, to give them opportunities to be gainfully employed so that they don't need to look towards crime as an alternative. I think we've been very successful in that effort. At the same time, though, I don't think we can be too loose. I mean, if people commit violent crimes, and they are, I think they need to be punished, and I'm disappointed to see what's happening in Cook County. I don't think they're pursuing prosecutions as fairly and as correctly as we are here in DuPage County. So I think there needs to be a balance with criminal justice reform.
Okay, so here we are, ready for your final statement. You have 1 minute, anything you'd like to share.
All right, I really appreciate the opportunity to serve on your behalf, and I would be delighted to hear your support. But I'm going to talk about somebody else here for a second. We are so privileged to have Peter Breen working on our behalf. I've been down in Springfield. I've worked collaboratively, I've worked cooperatively, that's my style. That's his style too. The Lethal Violence Order Protection Bill is a bill that was passed that allows us to take guns out of the households of dangerous people. That's one of our best accomplishments this year. That bill would not have passed, and I mean this seriously, that bill would not have passed if Peter Breen was not at the table negotiating that bill. We owe him a debt of gratitude for what he stands for and the way that he conducts himself down there.